That's tomorrow. And that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a, I can't do it. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
There's only one fucker here tonight, Mickey. Just to let you know, I'll get into that in a second. And Brendan, welcome in as well. Joe Quill's here with you, flying solo tonight. Snowbound and down on this Monday night. You know, I can be creative and play on words and stuff like that if I really wanted to. But you know, it's all part of the creative thing. So, just to answer Mickey's comment there. Normally we have two fuckers here, and that's his word, not mine. Usually Mike is on the other side of the table, and I'm here. But since Mike lives down by the airport area in Delaware County, we set a rule at the very beginning of this whole process. And the rule was basically, as I'm setting things up here, the rule was basically, if it snows, don't come up, because it's like a 15 20 mile ride, and you know it's not a straight shot, because you gotta make a left here and make a right there and slide to the left, slide to the left, slide to the right, something like that. But thankfully, Mike today said, snow rules, see you next Monday. Because he could have said, see you next Tuesday. And I don't have a rim shot. I know I should have one, but I do have Bill O'Reilly on here now.
Do it live. Do it live.
On top of other things I have here. So I told you guys last week I was on the other laptop and I found all these sound drops. I was like, oh, yes. But, and it is cold here tonight here in Philly. We got about 9 inches of snow yesterday. And I know a lot of women like to get pounded by 9 inches, but not like that. But, yeah, so it is one of those nights here where I'm flying alone tonight, and we'll get to a whole bunch of things here. We'll get into the Sean Payton call on 4th down in the second quarter, because it's an interesting article that was posted on ESPN today. Phillip Rivers withdrew from the Bills head coaching search. And I will say, the one thing I will say tonight, I will go from personal experience, even though the job interview I had years ago, I wasn't really looking for a job, but it was, you know, we'll get into that. Snow's affecting everything. I'll give thoughts on the Seattle-New England Super Bowl. Initial thoughts. We'll dig deeper into it next week, which may be me solo, because there may be another storm next weekend or this weekend. So, and you know, that will affect also eligible as well. So, so we'll see what happens with everything here. You know, we're just going to have some fun here tonight. Just me and you, but no dog named Boo. You remember that song? Me and you and a dog named Boo. Anyway, so, yeah, I need help. So today I had a very interesting day. Well, at least what I do a lot of times now, I start watching Twitch while I'm finishing up my article work for the races I post. And that's going to lead into the snow stuff. So I'm putting the stuff in there. I'm starting to, and the one thing is with Twitch, and you know, Brendan knows about this because, you know, he is a streamer that streams every day. I'm being told, you know, you should do different streamers every once in a while. And, you know, the one guy that I've been talking to over the last week as a result of it, even though it's out of the park baseball, he didn't know I stream, period, let alone just regular sports and not out of the park baseball, even though that's going to be coming up soon. Maybe Wednesday if I'm in the mood. But the one thing I do is I start watching the out of the park baseball streams, because certain games on the Twitch page. And by the way, why aren't you following me on Twitch? Twitch.tv/Joe Quills here. So, and yeah, I need to go into stream elements here and do all kinds of things. So, and those that are watching on Twitch, you have all my socials there. So, and I got to get into TikTok. I got to get more into Threads and all that other stuff. So, but, so I go in the morning, and the usual guy that's on in the morning wasn't on today because he's out in the Pittsburgh area. And when the weather is as bad as it is, electricity and internet issues can happen. Thankfully, knock on wood, nothing here. So, and by the way, Mickey, Emerald Downs, that's in your neck of the woods. So anyways, so I started watching another streamer, and the reason why you always check with Twitch, especially if you're a gamer, because like I think Madden has it, I think NBA 2K has it, other games, they have drops and they give you these things that help you out with the game. Like for example, out of the park baseball, they have a thing called Perfect Team, where every week is a season and every day is a month in the season. And you get these cards that are rated from 40, meaning barely major league player, to 100. And then they have special cards that are 101, 102, 103, 104, 105. So I watch the 5-packs, and it takes you an hour and a half to get those 5 packs. The first pack is at 15 minutes. The second is at 30. The third is at 45. The fourth one is an hour. Those 4 are standard packs. So you will get on average. Now, they may slip in a card that is better than the iron. What they will do is they will give you 5 irons and a bronze card, which is a rating of 60 to 69. And yes, 69. Nice. Iron is 40 to 59, that sort of thing. So I'm kind of paying attention because I'm working on a couple of different things. I'm starting to get ready for tonight. And by the way, congrats to me, because I had the show ready to go at 6 o'clock tonight. I didn't start on time, but I had it ready to go at 6 o'clock for a 9 o'clock start. But one of the people that I follow, and it's Dr. Dynastic. And he has this fictional league that is on the Red Rock, that is on his page, and you know they go on to the out of the park baseball OOTP developments. So what they do, what he has is he has one FKN Commish LB. He has a league, his own league called EMLB. Dr. Dynastic has a league that's a totally fictitious league called the Red Rock League, and it's based out of the southwestern portion of the United States. And every season, when the season wraps up, you can start putting in a player for the game. So I got my name. I got my guy in there for the next season, which would be the 2027 season in terms of everything there. So my guy for this year is named Axel Hammond because I was like, oh, what am I going to use for a name? Because I want to use the name Eli Manning face, Eli Manning dash face, but you know, he has restrictions on names and stuff. So I'm like, all right, well, I won't do it on this league. So what I did was I morphed two different Eddie Murphy characters, Reggie Hammond from 48 Hours and Axel Foley from Beverly Hills Cop series, and morphed it into one name. And you get to put a little story in there. It's like, well, he's going to take a job in Beverly Hills, California Police Department, and he gets to about New Mexico, and so they created my guy on Friday. So today, I'm kind of paying attention, and this one guy creates a player named Jay Quillen. And for those that don't know, that's my real last name. It's just that I use that name here just for, just because, it's a little bit of a stage name, so to speak, but it's also, in a way, the nickname that my friends gave me in high school that, I still have, and actually a nickname I like. And also the fact that it's a bit of a tribute to my high school algebra teacher. So I'm thinking, is this, an unintentional thing on my name, similar name to my real name, or is it like Jake Willen, kind of like Jake from State Farm? So they go through the process. What happens is he creates the what he does is he creates you three different players, and whatever characteristics you get from those three players, which one you like the best, that's what you use. That's the one you'll use, and that will assume the identity. The other two guys will just be deleted. So don't you know, it was Jay Quillen. And I joked around with Dr. Dynastic in chat because I said, that is way too close to my real name. Now, mind you, I don't care if you know that my last name is Quillen or not, because of the fact that, this is just, it's just a screen name because it's like, it's a couple of different reasons. It's a bit of a nickname, it's a bit of a tribute, all that stuff. So I'm joking around. I said, man, that is way too similar to my name. I'm going to be really, really weirded out, but in a good way, because, I'm not saying, hey, take that name down. I'm not doing anything like that, but I'm looking and the name is very similar, except the last name is spelled incorrectly if you consider my name the only correct way to spell it. So it turns out there is a Quillen in this fake league called the Red Rock League. So that's something that happened today that was really funny as hell that happened today. I was like, man, that is way too weird. So, but when you're snowed in, so to speak, and it is what it is. So, and not a good night for the Flyers tonight, as they are down 4-0 or 4-0 to the New York Islanders. And by the way, they play right next to Belmont Park, which will be opening. Belmont Park will be opening back up in September. So that's the funny thing that happened to me today. So, and things like that happen, especially when you don't even feel like going outside. And let me tell you, football. I mean, weather is affecting everything. And motherfucker, my pick lost. Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna. Just to let you guys know, I played a parlay and a single wager on BetMGM with a boost. So, I just threw $20 away. So 10 and 10. But so we got about 9 inches of snow here. I don't know who was the big snowstorm winner in my area, but the thing is, you had the snow, you had a little bit of sleet, you had a little bit of rain, which turned to ice, freezing rain, and a little bit of snow on the back end. And now, very weird day when it came to pulling up the horse racing page, because everything from the west, everything from the Arizona, New Mexico border east was canceled today. Now, granted, this time of year, there isn't many options to wager on in the landscape of horse racing because it's winter. And the big tracks usually run on the weekends because they'll get the big money and blah, blah, blah. And we can talk about that another time. So, where am I? Where is it at? Here it is. So, I mean, this cold weather and snow has really gripped the eastern 2/3 of the United States, or eastern 3/4 if you want to be even more specific, because the only track that ran in the United States today is Turf Paradise in Arizona. Other than that, there was nothing today. I mean, if you had Twin Spires, you were able to bet on the Gulfstream simulcast and the Gulfstream simulcast and the Laurel simulcast today, but Sunland Park canceled. Parks canceled yesterday for today. Just trying to think here, what else canceled today? Mahoning Valley canceled early. Sunland Park canceled this morning. Yonkers canceled. Western Fair in Canada, they actually ran. Woodbine Mohawk, they're running right now, but everybody else that was scheduled to run today canceled. I mean, if you're a fan of harness racing, even if you play Monticello Raceway up in the Catskills in Monticello, New York, they canceled. Rosecroft in Maryland, they're a night track. They canceled. Yonkers canceled. Miami Valley in Ohio canceled. And Dover Downs canceled. So today was a good day not to do a damn thing because everything in the horse racing world canceled. For some reason, they moved up the Sixers game to 3 o'clock. And I don't know the whole story behind it because I saw Joel Embiid did not play because they got a home and home. They got not a home and home, but they come back here tomorrow night if they can get back. And the Sixers lost by 50 today, I believe. But let me pull up the Sixers box score here just for the fact that, yeah, they lost by 47 to Charlotte. And Paul George did not play either. Now, I didn't even watch the game. So that gives you an idea of how much interest I had in that this afternoon. But they moved that game up early. They moved the Atlanta game up early. And the thing is, when you look at the attendance numbers at these games, no matter where it is, they don't go by who's actually puts ass cheek to seat or who gets their ticket scanned to get into the arena. It's tickets sold. So if you're sitting there at a Phillies game, you're sitting there at a Mariners game, just like in a piece, Mickey, or you go football game or whatever, they will post the actual tickets sold and tell you that's the attendance. Like sometimes you see 45,000 in the box score for the Phillies game. There's no way there's 45,000. Well, some will argue, well, have you tried walking Ashburn Alley during a game where you're trying to walk that state line and you're walking around like it's Ridge Avenue, trying to get around people all the time? So that was Atlanta played an early game today. Sixers and Charlotte played an early game. I guess the reason why is probably because they figure, all right, well, we may have to. Actually, maintenance on my face there. I'm a mess, but a lot of what you're seeing is weather because I mean the NCAA 5 or 6 games was postponed today. Now there weren't many games because usually Monday's not a big day for college basketball. I mean Monday's the new Friday because it used to be a few years ago the only games that were played on Friday were Ivy League games because Ivy's always played on Friday and Saturday. You would have, let's say you had Yale and Harvard. They would come down to the Philadelphia area. One would play at Princeton, one would play at Penn, and then they would switch. And let's say Yale was playing at Princeton, Harvard was playing at Penn. They would switch sites between Princeton and Penn. But you do have a lot of stuff going on here, and I know like Philly is still under a snow emergency allegedly from what I saw earlier today, and I'm not even gonna try to find the post that I had from a Facebook group that I put a comment in. The comment that I made over, back in the fall when there were, because every news station in the northeast portion of the United States will tell you this is what we expect. This is what we expect for this winter. So, so I said, they were saying whatever the number is, I don't even remember. I said, don't be surprised if we get more snow this winter because we're due. I mean, it's kind of like betting on Major League Baseball. Well, why'd you bet on this team? They lost 14 in a row. They're due. Why'd you bet against this team that won 12 in a row? They're due to lose one. That's why, sometimes you do that. Sometimes you go against the trend of all the numbers and stuff like that. And we'll get into the analytics of the whole Sean Payton thing from early in the game yesterday. And the irony of him preparing for the Patriots last weekend for yesterday. But, sometimes you take a look at all the stats and it's like, you know what? I'm bucking the trend here. Team A's won 12 in a row. Team B, 14 in a row they've lost. Even if they're playing against each other, it's like, well, I gotta fade that trend because guess what? They're due, especially in baseball, because you play every day. And especially basketball, because you never know when a team's going to be load managing like the Sixers did tonight, this afternoon. Which, oh my God, did they ever? Now I didn't watch the game, so say what you will about that. Nor do I care, but I just think when you look at everything, it's going to be a rough week. Anywhere from probably Virginia upward. And you can probably extend it out to the west because we're getting hit with a major polar air mass that's going to make things very cold. I mean, it is so cold right now that Aqueduct has already canceled Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday racing. And it's only Monday because things aren't going to change until Saturday. Now, I kind of teased Mike today that I wasn't going to post it not because of Mike. The problem is, and there's a weathercaster here in Philadelphia, Adam Joseph. He went off on people yesterday or today, how people hold these, have this thing where if we don't get all snow or we only get 6 inches and you're projecting 12 to 14, you're going to give the person grief. No. I know from watching the weather all the time, because I have a little bit of an idea, but not too much of an idea. You do have things that happen. Even hurricanes, like, you're saying, oh, it's going to hit Tampa direct hit and misses. It wobbles to the south and it hits Naples. Now that's a big span there, but you get the idea. You're playing for one thing all along, and then all of a sudden, at the last minute, something changes. That's the thing with weather. It's all a guess. And, but the thing, I mean, some weather casters and newscasts, they claim that they're the most accurate, and I was going to share with Mike because Mike asked me today, are you going away this weekend? Because I told him what I had wanted to do. I told him that I wanted to go up to New York on Saturday. And part of the reason why is because, and by the way, Churchill Downs right now, -1 degrees Fahrenheit. So I doubt Turfway is going to run this week. So they're saying for snow on Sunday. They're only saying 1 to 3 inches right now. When I was looking earlier today, and by the way, Saturday morning, -2 degrees in Philly, the air temperature. So, but the way I was looking at it, it was saying originally that we were going to get, at least on the Apple thing, 12 to 24 inches of snow. Now, even if you have the most accurate computer that can accurately call for snow 5 days in advance, you have to remember it's 5 days in advance and things change. I mean, the temperatures aren't changing because they're just going lower and lower. So I kind of made the decision over the weekend that I was definitely not going up to New York. And I know some people were saying, well, what's in New York, especially this time of the year? Well, what I had planned to do is if a horse from the Bleacher Brothers stable Horse from the Bleacher Brothers stable, Schoolyard Superman. You know, it's not an actual stable. It's like the horses that AJ owns a part of. I think he owns the anus of each horse. But you know, with the weather being as cold as it is, no, I'm not. As they said right now, no live racing as of Saturday. I'm sorry, no live racing until Saturday, and that's no guarantee either with the weather. Aqueduct hasn't even posted the entries for Saturday yet. But, you know, the thing is, I don't want to go up to New York, even though there's a ton of shit to do in Manhattan and whatever. You know, I don't want to go up there just to hear Saturday morning, oh, they're canceled. And especially, I got a show I got to do on Saturday morning. I mean, I could record it and then post it. You know, I just got to figure out how to do that. But, you know, and I don't think they're going to run that on Saturday either, because if you look at Saturday morning, in New York City, now mind you, wherever the weather station is, they're saying it's going to be 1 degree, with a high of 17 on Saturday. I don't think they're running. Unless there's some miracle warm front that comes through, we're in the deep freeze all week. So probably the Wither Stakes will probably run the 7th or the following Saturday, the Saturday before the Super Bowl. So I'll be here on Saturday, and you know, but the weather is affecting everything right now. You know, it affected the Flyers today. They lost 4-0, 4-0. You know, and it's affecting everything. Don't expect any racing other than Florida on Wednesday when Tampa Bay comes back. I think Gulfstream starts again on Thursday. So other than those two tracks, you're not going to see anything. Well, Turf Paradise, but you know, I don't mean to say that in that tone, but you get the idea, because you know, it's like the tracks that do run this time of year, you know, they gamble, and they're all rolling snake eyes right now to match the 1 degree temperatures that New York is going to have on Saturday morning as of right now. But I will let you guys know, even if Aqueduct does not run, I'm still going to have also eligible on Saturday morning, because we will be looking at the very least Gulfstream Park. And why is this? Wait a second. Hold on. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. Okay, well. So there you go. Also eligible this Saturday, 10 a.m. Wherever you get, wherever you watch, it'll be on there. We're definitely. My phone went off for whatever reason. We're definitely going to look at Gulfstream Park now, and for whatever reason, So, for whatever reason, you know, the picture wasn't showing. I'm probably going to have to watch the YouTube video on on YouTube, Bleacher Brothers YouTube, or whatever, because for whatever reason that did not come up, and it should have. But I digress. Let me just do one thing here. Because we have a spammer in the Bleacher Brothers chat. So we're definitely going to have Gulfstream Park on Saturday, and that will be the show will start at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And see, somebody spammed the Bleacher Brothers, so that means if my mods are here, be prepared, because usually if I get it on one, I get it on the other, because I stream on two different Bleacher Brothers, two different Twitch channels. That's not what I wanted. Just want to see one thing here. Okay, yeah. I do see one of my moderators is here. But yeah. But the thing is, it turns into a game. Who's going to get there first? But we're definitely going to look at Gulfstream. I'm getting to that point because, all of a sudden I see the spammer and I see this, I see that, and I see Paris, I see France, I see some person. Gulfstream has the Holy Bull. Meanwhile, I'm the Holy Bullshitter. But Oaklawn is supposed to open this weekend. I don't think they will because of the extreme cold, and also with the fact that Oaklawn is in a national park, so they can't use chemicals on the track to help the thawing out process to get the track ready. So they're one of those tracks that takes longer to get back to racing when there's a storm like there is right now. And which is ironic because they took the break that they had so that the winter weather can hit and they'd be ready to go. And, but, that's the thing this time of year. You roll the dice, you come up snake eyes. So anyways, that's everything with that. And let's get to the games here. And it's going to be Seattle and Patriots. And everybody's going to say, oh, it's a rematch of Super Bowl 49. And we're going to hear nothing but Malcolm Butler. And, but I got to say one thing. That first game yesterday, even before the snow hit, was one of the most boring championship games I've seen in any sport. My God. You had Drake May, who made Kevin Cobb look like Tom Brady, or Tim Tebow look like Tom Brady. But the only thing is, when you got a great defense and you're running, and you only threw for 84 yards, I believe it was, but you still won. But we knew it was going to be a tight game. We knew it was going to be a game where, and Mike agrees with me, it was a snooze fest. If I wasn't, if it wasn't because it was a championship game, I would have been double, triple dipping on caffeine like I am right now. Just trying to get the game, and they showed in the fourth quarter Foxborough and all the snow coming down. Oh, imagine playing there today. No, they would not have been playing on Sunday, because what they probably would have done, they probably would have had the game moved up to Saturday, because of the fact that they were calling for all this snow. And we were supposed to get 8 to 14 event, and the last call that I saw on one of the networks, and each network will have their own numbers, but they'll all be in the range usually. So we got 9 officially, and it is what it is. It's just that this snow is not going to move for a week, and if that snow that's supposed to happen does happen again, could you imagine if the game was in Philly? Same thing. The NFL would have moved that game to Saturday, in my opinion. Because the one thing is, and even with baseball, I mean, if you remember the 2008 World Series, if you remember Bud Selig when he had that press conference after the game was suspended, he said, "We'll wait here as long as it takes to get Game 5 completed." So he was over exaggerating, but he got to the point that, even though it wasn't a contingency, I think they wanted to try to get the game in. They didn't expect the rain to really kick in like it did. I thought that they probably thought, oh, well, maybe if we get to the 8th inning, we can put in, have a 9th inning, which is a little sloppy, but turned out the rains came, and 6th inning they suspended. Bud Selig said, we're going to wait as long as it takes. And we had to wait 48 hours until that very cold night, which felt like tonight, because you're not used to that cold in October. But I think the NFL does have a contingency plan in place, because also remember, they've moved games around because of the snow, and they've become more flexible ever since COVID. Even though COVID is hit the wrong thing there. Even though COVID is more, COVID's going to be around forever, but they want to get the game in under the most optimal conditions. Now, yesterday, you had that quick time lapse, and all of a sudden, you have, in a matter of 10 minutes, if that, you went from snow globe effect to a covered field of snow. And that's just the Rocky Mountain way, not the Joe Walsh version of that, but you get the idea. They said, oh, chance of flurries. Next thing you know, you got an inch or 2 of snow on the ground. But it was very interesting that now you think back at this, Sean Payton goes for it on 4th down when he's up 7-0. Now, Mike and I are both old school. We're both old. And yes, Mike, I'm lumping myself in there. I'm not putting you out on your own ledge there, but so it's 7-0. They have a 4th and 1. Now, mind you, you don't have Bo Nix because he broke his ankle last Sunday or last Saturday. Now, Some people say it was when it was about 5 minutes to go, or whenever he was scrambling to the outside to his left. I think, and I think most of the media will say that it wasn't that play. It was the kneel down play because it was a little funky because a couple of guys rushed and he was trying to stall a little bit because, you want to eat a little bit of clock, but you're also putting yourself in the perfect position for the kicker, the way he wants the ball and everything. So that injury was there. So when you look at everything, now this wasn't they didn't have a backup like a Nick Foles when the Eagles lost Carson Wentz for the season. Bo Nix is not little used, but I know what you're saying there. But we'll get to that. But but I think hindsight 2020. You just tell them take the knee and don't worry about the thing. Or if you're going to put the ball at the middle of the field, I think you're going to see quarterbacks give up and dive to the left, dive to the left, dive to the right. But but the thing is, it was a weird thing because when Bo Nix was standing on the sideline last week, you saw him wince on a replay that I saw on X. So, and the thing is, you don't have a Nick Foles or Jeff Hostetler that stepped in and took the team to the Super Bowl, or even Tom Brady the first time he won, because he was a backup at the start of the year, and the one jet hit Drew Bledsoe right in the sternum, and Drew bled so much he almost died. Tom Brady comes in, they managed things and they won a Super Bowl. But I think, maybe Sean Payton thought too highly of Jarrett Stidham. Maybe it's because he was high, more than just the fact that he's at 5,208 feet above sea level. But you're up 7-0. And your defense is cranked up. The defense knows they gotta be at their best, especially after giving up 31 points, I think it was, to Buffalo last week. They knew that they had to crank things up, and they knew that they had a struggling quarterback too coming in, even though they had won. Or they thought, yeah, that too. So, and we still talk about it to this day, that if Dan Campbell, when it was a 14-point game in the third quarter against the Niners 2 years ago, all he has to do is match what San Francisco puts on the board. They kick a field goal. If you get down the field, you kick a field goal. And it was a makeable field goal, as we all remember from 2 years ago. They went for it, didn't get the first down. Oh, by the way, momentum's a bitch. And so is karma. And that's why Detroit has never been to a Super Bowl. Because guess what? When you got something in the palm of your hand and you get it snatched away from you. But it isn't necessarily the case there, but a little fate came in because, you can't blame for the snow. Because I guarantee you, because I was watching Action Lab Sports during the game, and, they weren't expecting that in the forecast, but they were saying, yeah, it may snow a little bit in the second half, but not like it did. So the irony is, in this article written by Seth Wickersham on ESPN, Sean Payton sat in his office at the Denver facility last Sunday. He was watching film of his opponent, the New England Patriots. He also wanted to have the Rams-Chicago game on in the background. So he turned on one of the flat screens in his office, flipped it, and somehow Dora the Explorer was set up on there. So he found the right channel. And if you remember, on their first drive, Bears had a 4th and 2 from the 21. They went for it. Caleb Williams threw an interception. Well, they lost by 3 in overtime. So more and more, we're getting the analytics and everything. I mean, even if your thinking is, well, if we score a touchdown, 7 is better than 3. But I will always argue to you, 3 is better than 0. And I think even if you were to kick a field goal in that case on 4th and 2, now mind you, the Bears coach was the author of the offense. So the Lions offense 2 years ago. So say what you will. So, I mean, we can sit here to no end and talk about missed opportunities because we have to go for it. Our analytics, by the way, analytics has the word anal in it. Enough said. Ironically, in his office, as the Bears are lining up on offenses, he squinted at the TV and said, "Kick it." Now, Peyton's an old school coach. He's been in the league. He's been in the league for 19 seasons. Let's do that. But Caleb Wilson was intercepted, costing the Bears 3 points. And as you know, the Bears lost in overtime, even though they say we lost by 3. So turning back to his game preparation, he said, why are the coaches not kicking field goals? And it's more than just this year. It's been the last few years. I think even though it goes further than that, I mean, one of the first guys in the NFL that really got aggressive on 4th downs was Doug Peterson in the Super Bowl 52 season. Actually, he was aggressive the year before, but it became more prominent to the sports media because of the fact that because the Eagles were in the spotlight because, where's this team coming from? And, I can imagine Conor McGregor back then.
Who the fuck is that guy?
But, so it's becoming the most scrutinized call. And I don't know about you. I like scoring points. And if I know I have a damn good defense, especially with the situation that, and my analytics phrase is spot on, thank you. The thing is, I like points. And knowing the situation I was in with a backup quarterback, now the backup quarterback is not a Nick Foles type that came in and won you a Super Bowl. Now, mind you, that hindsight is 2020 as well. But you had a serviceable quarterback with the Eagles in 8 years ago where he could step in, be the guy, and take you down the field and get you enough points to win the game week after week. And we got to see what he did once they got over that scare in the division series with Atlanta. He turned it up a notch, and we got to see what he did against Minnesota, and we got to see what happened with New England. So, you know, now there is a thing called the Bellman equation. Now, a Cal Berkeley economist named David Romer authorized a paper called "It's Fourth Down and What Does the Bellman Equation Say?" Now, I'm not going to say what the Bellman equation is in terms of variables and all that, because I don't even know what it is, but the conclusion is clear. The probabilities of what could happen after a successful conversion of 4th and 4 or less outweighed kicking a field goal, or in some cases, punting and playing field position. Simply put, the math told coaches to be more aggressive. I think sometimes, even in the fact that the NFL changes, when they do the rules changes, 9 times out of 10, it favors the offense over the defense. So I don't know about you. Even though I'd be stopping a drive which may lead to a touchdown and everybody going batshit crazy in the crowd and all that, I would rather, in many cases, get the points. Especially when, like last week, when you look at Chicago, and oh, by the way, another snow game. We had 3 snow games that I know of. Patriots last week, the Bears last week, Denver yesterday. I would rather put a little bit of pressure because my team's score on the scoreboard does not have a 0 on it, especially early on, and your team's does. Even though it's middle of first quarter when this play happened, I think it was. Might have been earlier because, I'm not going to pull up the box score or anything. I would rather put the points on the board. Now, the thing is, the analytics is great in the regular season because especially if you're a team that doesn't, let's say your team doesn't do anything there. It's like, okay, well, it's just a regular season game. But in the playoffs, it means that much more. And how does it feel when you go for it on 4th down because the analytics is saying yes, your testosterone is saying yes, everything's telling you go for it? Well, this is what it's like when you don't get the first down. Exactly. It's like you crashed. And in this article, they also mentioned the Rams last night because you're going for it on 4th down. Well, that's a different situation because in the fourth quarter, even though you could question that why the Rams did not go for 2, which in a way kind of made sense because if you miss a 2-point conversion early on in the third quarter, then you're forced into 2 to make it back to where you were. Or you're down 5 instead of 4. But I think in a lot of cases, sometimes it's okay to let off the gas a little bit and make sure your point total is higher than what your opponent's total is. It's not a bad thing, at least to me. And maybe it's because I'm old school. I mean, is it fun to do the tush push and get the first down and be like, haha, you can't stop us? Yeah, that's fun too. But guess what? Unless you have a play like that that's pretty much unstoppable, and it's gotten to the point where it's starting to get stopped. I would rather get the points, but if it's like 4th and inches, yeah, you got to go for it. But 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and 4, yeah, I want the points. Sorry. I understand the risk that's involved, but I also want the points. And there's a risk with that as well, because let's say you kick a 50-yard field goal and you miss it, that ball is on their 40-yard line. Because when they get the ball back, they don't get the ball back where the line of scrimmage is. They get it where the ball is placed to be kicked. So there's there's strategy involved with ball position no matter where you're going. But the findings by Romer about going for it with 4th and 4 or less, it didn't become conventional wisdom for more than a decade. Now you can't watch a game where a broadcast will feature in-game analytics, comments of, the chances of making a first down, our suggestion is to go for it, But Dan Campbell is the guy that this falls onto, because once Detroit started winning, and by the way, that first year, he started out, 0-8, I believe? But then he kept winning. So now they do have the director of game management, Denver, that is, Evan Rothstein, who is one of Payton's most trusted and valued staffers. So he gives presentations to Payton and the coordinators, breaking down key moments from the previous week game and ending with data-backed opinions of what to do should the Broncos end up in a similar position. But Payton has the final call here. So, ironically enough, when he was in his office watching the Rams and the Bears, and Ben Johnson is the head coach of the Bears. So generally, the Broncos are driving and faced with a 4th and short, they'll strongly consider going for it. And if it's 4th and 1 and the opponent turns the ball over, it gives Denver a short field, Payton will usually take the points. Now, we're talking about the AFC Championship game. Winner gets to go to Santa Clara. And you had an opportunity to go up 10-0 on a team that was doing nothing on your defense. Jared May was not doing much. And especially in that first half of the game, until that fumble, lateral, whatever it was. And by the way, Patriots got screwed out of a touchdown there, because it should have been a touchdown for the defense instead of having to drive 15, 20 yards for the touchdown. But that's all moot point, because they scored anyway. You have a backup quarterback who hadn't thrown a pass in a couple of years, let alone played, other than take a couple snaps, hand it off to kill the time. You hadn't seen any real game action, competitive game action, in years. So everything there, even if I'm the type of guy who wants to go for it all the time, the playoffs are a total different animal. And, it's kind of like when I talk about baseball, or I talk about standings in general. Like, for example, with baseball, it's 162 games. Allegedly, all the games mean the same. It's 1 in 162. So whatever that percentage is, that's the amount of the season that you play in each game. But the pressure of making the playoffs come September makes that same game feel like a whole lot more. In this case, I kicked the field goal here knowing I got a backup quarterback. But I also got a defense that's cranking it right now. Because guess what? You got a team in New England that could not get started against that defense. And knowing I'm up 2 scores, the way my defense is playing, yeah, I'll kick the field goal. But why did Payton go for it? He wanted 14-0. Guess what? So, and mind you, you also don't know what the weather's going to happen in the second half. I guarantee they knew there's a possibility of some snow, but not the change that we saw in a matter of minutes. But you know that Jared Stidham is going to make mistakes. And that's why he's a backup quarterback. But he's pressed into duty because a freak injury by Bo Nix knocked Denver's chances way down. Well, guess what? He made that mistake where I don't know what he was trying to do, actually. I think he was trying to get rid of the ball. And even though he was outside the pocket, they originally called it intentional grounding because of the fact that even though he was outside the tackle box, he didn't reach the line of scrimmage. But as he was trying to throw it, which truthfully, it wasn't even a throw. It was, he had no control of the ball as it went backwards to begin with. So it was a lateral, which the Patriots recovered. So you kick that field goal, you're 10-0. They score that touchdown just like they did. You're still up 3. But instead, things changed. And both defenses were cranked up. Offensively, this was a game offensively. If you just talk about the offensive portion of it, it was a game that set football back about 20 years, minimum. Now, in terms of defenses cranking up, it was top notch. But, it also helped that you had Jeffy Dahmer versus Corky from Life Goes On playing. And I know I'll get into trouble for that, but I don't care. But, I can understand going up 14-0, but me personally, the way my defense was playing, I want a 2-score lead. I don't care if it's 10-0. You can get another touchdown later in the game maybe and get it to 17-0. And then everybody in Denver's thinking, all right, well, let me look at flights to Santa Clara, to San Francisco, San Jose, wherever they would fly into. But instead, you change plays. You have one play played, and then you go to another play after you call a timeout. You don't get the first down. And, there was no momentum in the game either way. If there was momentum, it was the two defenses controlling the offenses. Other than that, it was a very boring game. And thankfully, I did not have to be in the crowd, because guess what? I would have been like, it's too fucking cold. I'm leaving. But But, Denver did miss 2 field goals as well. Stidham had that fumble in the second quarter, which was ruled a penalty. Then the flag was picked up and was ruled a fumble. Drake May, other than running, didn't do anything. But, it was just two defenses dominating, and the snow made it harder. And can you imagine if let's say Denver kicks that field goal and the Patriots do tie that game before all the snow hit? They may still be playing right now. They may have had a chance to break the all-time professional record for overtime. Now you'll say, oh, Kansas City and Miami, that Christmas in the 60s where they went double overtime and halfway into the second overtime. In the USFL, they had a 3 overtime game. And I looked it up last night because I said, that's rivaling that, where essentially Michigan Panthers were playing the LA Express. Remember those teams? Steve Young was on the LA team. They went into a 3rd overtime, and Mel Gray scored the touchdown, and he broke his arm on that play when he scored the touchdown. But yeah, that's the longest professional game in any league. That went 3 overtimes. So, but that would have with this conditions and everything, that probably would have rivaled that one. And everybody would be like, well, what happens after this first overtime? Even though Denver experienced a double overtime game the year Baltimore won their second Super Bowl, and we almost got to experience a second overtime in the Super Bowl 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. But you can question McVay not going for 2 there in the third quarter, but I think they knew we could score on Seattle, because if you remember the last time those 2 teams played, they played a 39-38 game in overtime, and both teams went down the field. Now, if Denver and New England win overtime, that probably goes to a second overtime and maybe a third. But this game didn't have a feel that it was going to be overtime. Somebody was going to win. And, each team was taking punches left and right. And give the Rams credit, even on that final drive, even though Puka Nacua, his knee was down before he went out of bounds, ending the game. It was a back and forth game. It was a much better game in terms of excitement. Even if you don't have a horse in a race this time, like for example, last year, come home from Florida in time for the game, and I'm sitting here, and it was nice sitting here knowing, oh, by the way, Eagles are going to the Super Bowl, and the game's not in doubt. Well, it was in doubt a little bit in the second quarter, and then the Eagles said, "No, get the fuck out of here." But but I think they try to compare the 4th downs that Sean McVay went for, because 31-27, like with about 5 or 6 minutes left to go, I think it was. I don't think it says on here. The one thing I would say, is when it's 31-27 and it's in the 4th quarter, some people are saying, just kick the field goal. There's no guarantee you're going to get the ball back. There's no guarantee. So you can't compare. I mean, I think it's apples and oranges here, because you have an opportunity for points, but you're also ahead. When you get points, you're up 2 scores. When you look at the Rams, when they're down 4 in the fourth, in hindsight, yeah, you get the field goal, you make it 31-30, but you're forcing your defense back on the field, and they could have the ball in a better position off of the kickoff. But I really think you're comparing apples and oranges here, because the need for getting a first down on a fourth is much more pertinent for the Rams than it was for Denver, because you're up 7-0. All you need to do is get points, because the defense is. But the Rams defense was getting eaten alive by Seattle, but the Rams were eating Seattle's defense a little bit too. So say what you will, they're two totally different things. But I just really think that we're going to end up with I hope is a good game. And I'm getting the feeling, I don't know why, I'm getting the feeling we're getting into this era where we may be getting a couple more blowouts in a row. Because you look at the Eagles-Kansas City score last year, 40-22. Eagles called off the dogs when it was 40-6. So you can say what you want about it being 40-22 at the end. Because also, Vic Fangio wanted the shutout, believe it or not. But I just think you need to realize that maybe, I just think, I'm hoping the game's not a blowout. I get the feeling it's going to be. Because even though I think the Patriots may be able to contain Seattle, and mind you, Mike Vrabel, he is the rare coach off of the Bill Belichick tree that's actually done something as a head coach, pro or college. Well, Bill O'Brien did a little bit of stuff in college, but But as head coaches, his tree has sucked ass. But when it comes to a lot of what you see here, and we'll probably, especially if Mike is able to make it next week, depending on the weather, we'll probably look through some of the props. Now, what I like to do, because it even though I should do FanDuel, because by the way, even though I'm not sponsored by FanDuel, we promote FanDuel here. You can use that promo on the top right. The one I like to look at is the Westgate Superbook in Vegas, and I'll probably download it in a couple of days. I'm looking at, because they have some different ones. Now, mind you, maybe I take a ride up the parks Wednesday or Thursday, or, as long as it's not snowing, which it's not going to. It's just going to be cold as hell. But we'll take a look at some of these props and see if we can do some things for shits and giggles. Or maybe I just use the FanDuel, just bring up the page and we do that, or compare Westgate with what they do, and if I can find something that's very similar, we can go with that. Because a couple of times I've been out to Vegas the week leading up to the Super Bowl, And and like the first time the Super Bowl went overtime, I had that the game was going overtime. I did have that like 8-1 odds or something. But I don't think there will be overtime this year. I really think, I said it to somebody today, I can see Seattle winning by at least 2 touchdowns. I'm hoping for a close game, but I get the feeling this is going to be an ugly game where Seattle wins fairly big, and we will be congratulating the New England Patriots as the first NFL franchise to lose not 1, not 2, not 3, not
11,
but 6 Super Bowls. And by the way, Mike, I have added some sounds, like for example,
11.
And I can hear some people's minds when they hear that I've added all these new sounds. I hear you guys out there. I hear you. It's all mental, but
Pussy's got a boner.
what can I say? So, but I'll take a look at some of those props leading up to the game, and Mike likes it. Like, he likes.
Pussy's got a boner. 11.
There's also the full Bill O'Reilly, which I started the show with, and I also just have.
Do it live.
I also have.
You said
balls. There's also.
Oh, good for you.
Christian Bale. And when somebody really pisses me off, or somebody that doesn't speak English, or let me rephrase that, doesn't understand English.
What don't you fucking understand?
There's the cliffhanger sting from The Price is Right. And then I add 2 different ones on here, Howard Dean, and then a crash. I need help. Or it might be on help. But either way, Mike likes the sound drops. And, I got to play around with a couple different ones. Damn it. There we go. So anyways, as I'm playing around with sounds and stuff like that, Philip Rivers withdrew from the Bills head coaching search. Now, mind you, no, I didn't put it on there. Damn it. Well, you know why I did not put the one sound I should have put on here? You know why?
Do you have any idea how fucking busy I am?
So anyway, I have to categorize these because this isn't setting up the way I had hoped, but I just have to have different folders for things. But Philip Rivers withdrew from the coaching search, Buffalo coaching search. Now, he's never coached at the collegiate or professional level. He's coached high school ball for 4 or 5 years. So it would have been a weird move, somebody going from high school all the way to the pros. But you had a guy who was an 18-season professional. And also, it also helps that his agent is also representing Josh Allen. But so he interviewed on Friday in Florida, but he pulled out today. And congrats to Philip Rivers. It's probably the first time he's ever pulled out of anything because he has 10 kids. But so the Bills are seeking a replacement for Sean McDermott, as we all know. And by the way, Sean McDermott is probably taking a year off from coaching. So the Bills interviewed pass game coordinator Davis Webb on Monday. You mean this?
Do you have any idea how fucking busy I am?
That one? Oh, I know what you mean. I know what you mean now. You don't have to type. You can delete that. I know what you mean now. Philip Rivers pulling it. Yeah, I get it. So Rivers came out of retirement to play this year. So he gets 5 more years of medical from the league. He was considered one of Buffalo's more intriguing candidates between rejoining the Colts this year after retiring following the 2020 season. He spent 5 years as a high school coach in Alabama. Wait a second. What state was he coaching in?
Alabama.
So the Athletic first reported Rivers' decision to pull out. So Rivers gained extensive knowledge and made valuable connections with coaches and players over his 18 seasons, first 16 with the Chargers. He also has the respect of Josh Allen and having mentored the Bills quarterback. So the one thing I will say is, even if you considered really a weird thing or whatever, I just think just going through the interview process is something Philip Rivers should have done. And I think no matter how well the Bills thought he did in that interview, or even, how he may have thought he did in the interview, the one thing I would say is the experience of actually going through the rigors of the interview process, because I guarantee you the NFL process of interviewing and the questioning that they have on here is so much different than the questioning of an interview in college or even in high school, I would think. I know high school, the pros would be much different, but I would think each level would be more rigorous in terms of the interviews. Now, I will tell you guys this. Back around (2017), I think it was, MLB had their diversity summit in Arizona. I went there with somebody I went to Drexel with. I actually had an impromptu interview with the Phillies, and I told the guy at the end, I appreciate it because I've been working at the company I work at for 17, 18 years at the time. And I said, you know what? Just to get used to going through an interview again, I really appreciated that. So, the fact that he's gone through this process, if he were to go through the interview process next year again, if he chose to do it, he knows what to expect. Now, granted, every team will have their own way of doing things, but for the most part, you would figure the process be the same. And also, most of the owners will know him from even his first 16 years that he played in San Diego / LA. So, I think that it's going to be so much, going through that interview, even though he had a high school interview for a head coaching job, this is something that, I think that's really going to help him in the long run. So, now let me just see one thing here, because it may just be Restream acting like a total dick tonight or whatever, but let me see something here. And if it doesn't show up, it doesn't show up. But also eligible will be live on Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Yeah, it's doing it. Okay. So for some reason, it's not showing up on the Twitch stream for whatever reason. I don't know why. Just some technical difficulties tonight. So, but like I said earlier tonight, we're definitely going to be looking at Gulfstream. Aqueduct is supposed to have races for the Road to Kentucky Derby, but they've already canceled Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's going to be just as cold on Saturday, so I'm imagining they're going to cancel that ahead of time because they haven't even drawn. They never drew for Friday. They were supposed to draw for Saturday yesterday. They never did. So that tells me enough there that maybe we're not going to run. So I guess what will happen is with that is they would just move it back a week. And the weather does appear to be a little bit better next week. And just to let you guys know that the snow emergency will lift at 6 a.m. on Tuesday here in Philadelphia. So, but it's still going to be fucking cold. Yeah, so next Tuesday in New York, it's supposed to be 30 degrees. Monday is going to be 31. But, you know, things can change. And we'll see what happens. But, you know, and there we go. So we had a spammer on my thing, like I said we would. See what I mean? We're not going to glorify that, but, you know, it is what it is. So, one last thing here, and a little baseball related. Harrison Bader is no longer a free agent. He signed with San Francisco, 2 years for $25 million. So now the thing is, when you hear everything that they're talking about and the rumors in the media, it's like, So I think 2 for $20 wouldn't have been that bad of a deal. But also remember, you do have Justin Crawford coming up in the minors and is going to be given every opportunity to win that job this year. So don't be surprised if you see Justin Crawford in left or in center or even in right. Well, not right because that's Adolis Garcia's position. But 2 for 20 and a half. He had one of his best offensive seasons. He's going to be a major boost to the Giants' center field defense. And also, he's got a lot more ground to cover there in San Francisco with that gap in right center, especially. But yeah, so he was a rental player, and he was definitely somebody who changed the attitude on the field a little bit, at least in my thinking, only because it just seemed like the outfield seemed a little bit different. It was like, we got a guy who can hit a little bit. We got a guy who, you know, has that leadership quality that you want in an outfielder, especially at center field. Because let's just call it like it is. Johan Rojas hasn't done shit once he got to the majors, and Mike's going to miss him. we'll send you to his hotel room when San Francisco comes to town, wherever that is. But yeah, he ended up winning over the fans, but we knew he was going to be free agent. And, I think if we didn't have Justin Crawford, and I'm saying we like I'm a part of the Phillies, even though I'm wearing a Phillies hat tonight. When they started saying, oh, Justin Crawford's going to be up here, we knew that he was going to be there. And, here's the thing. You can make moves. Like, for example, the elephant in the room, small dick Nick Castellanos is still on the roster. And the Phillies are trying to do whatever they can to get rid of him. But, of course, the latest rumor was he's going to Pittsburgh. Is he? No, they're going to have to get rid of him because, the only way you're going to be able to trade him being small dick Nick, is the fact that you're going to have to eat most of that $20 million. And the one thing I would love to ask the management of the Phillies, would you rather have had Castellanos 4 years, Schwarber 5 years? I say so. But yeah, so Castellanos has 1 year left on the contract, but he's probably not coming back. Well, we know he's not coming back. It's just a matter of how he leaves his team, whether it's a trade or a release or whatever, because I get the feeling that he was a major malcontent, and they had to do what they have to do to get that harmony back in the clubhouse. If it's more than just him being a malcontent, and like sometimes you hear rumors all the time about things going on in the clubhouse, and you just wonder, how are they leaking this? Is it this guy? Is it this guy? Or is it some guy who works behind the scenes in the clubhouse that, oh, by the way, Nick got pissed off because of this, and that. But we know somebody was leaking the information. But, you want to have a harmonious locker room. And, it is what it is. So, but I will say this. It is pretty damn cold here. And hopefully you guys stay warm. Because this is one of the coldest snaps, and I think at least my weather app on my phone has relented on the snow that we were rumored to get on Saturday. So it's just a matter of how cold it's going to be on Saturday, and we'll get everything ready for you on Saturday morning. At least I have a contingency plan in place already in my head for Saturday. So, but we'll be here, and hopefully, and Arizona's up 15 on BYU right now. So it looks like Arizona is going to continue their winning ways. They're still undefeated, right? 20-0. Yeah, they're one of 3 teams that are undefeated. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you have Arizona at 20-0, who's number 1, unanimous number 1 in the AP. Actually, unanimous in both polls. Nebraska is number 5 at 20-0. And Miami of Ohio, out of the Mid-American Conference, and I have to say Mid-American because there's 2 MACs in Division I basketball. There's the MAAC, the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, and the MAC, the Mid-American Conference. So Miami of Ohio is 20-0. So they're looking at they're looking to do a surprise undefeated season there in the MAC. And maybe it is the return of the MAC. Return of MAC. Return of MAC. But so so I'm just looking here, anything really new here before we call it a night. But yeah, so I'll be live here tomorrow, 9 o'clock, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. And we'll talk sports again. Maybe talk about how cold it is again. I doubt it'll be snowbound and down. Hope you like that title for this show tonight because, sometimes I get really good at creating stuff and sometimes I'm just like... But we do have some new drops and like Mike guessed...
He's got a boner.
But it is what it is. So anyways, thank you, Mike, for joining me tonight from home. Hopefully he'll be back here next Monday night. And thank you for not See You Next Tuesday. That's another reason why I don't have him coming up here on Tuesday nights because, I'd be like, see you next Tuesday. It would be the full see you next Tuesday, not the actual word, but, so Mike will be here hopefully next week, weather permitting. Thank you to Brendan, who caught the beginning of the show. Mickey was watching on YouTube. And wherever you're watching, I do appreciate each and every one of you. So we're going to do a live tomorrow. And I'll probably be dressed just as warmly as I am tonight because I prefer to wear shorts and T-shirts around the apartment, not in the near future with the window right next to me. So that's it for now. Check out everything with my socials at Joe Quills and except for Facebook. Facebook is Joe Quills Show, but it's all there in socials here. And, you should follow me on Twitch. That's my number one place to go. So twitch.tv/Joe Quills. So that's it for now. And let's do a live tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. So have a great night. And